the young, and the restless spoilers. Nick stood at the crossroads of his own conscience, torn between anger and compassion. The revelation that Sharon, the woman he had loved so deeply and shared so many years of his life with, was suffering from severe bipolar disorder left him shaken to the core. Sharon wasn't herself anymore. She had become someone else, a person capable of inflicting harm. And the victims of her manic descent into violence were people Nick held dear, especially Phyllis and Lucy, whom Sharon seemed fixated on. The situation took a dire turn when Phyllis became the direct target of Sharon's unhinged aggression. In a moment of uncontrollable rage, Sharon had attacked Phyllis with a brutality that left her hospitalized, fighting for her life. Nick's world collapsed as he rushed to the emergency room, the weight of betrayal, fear, and guilt pressing heavily on his heart. How could this have happened? Sharon, once vibrant and strong, now lived in a state of disarray, consumed by a mental illness that had unleashed a new, dangerous persona within her. As Nick sat outside the hospital room, his mind raced. He had always been protective of the women in his life, especially Phyllis, the fiery, resilient woman he once thought he'd lost forever. But now she lay unconscious, her body bruised and broken from Sharon's attack. Phyllis was the victim, yet Sharon was far from the villain she appeared to be. Nick couldn't fathom it. The woman who had done this horrific act was also the mother of his daughters, Mariah and Faith. That fact gnawed at him as he grappled with what he should do next. His thoughts were divided, pulling him in opposite directions. On one hand, he felt nothing but rage toward Sharon for what she had done to Phyllis. How could she, the mother of his children, hurt someone so viciously? The images of Phyllis lying helpless in that hospital bed only fueled his anger. But on the other hand, Sharon wasn't in control of herself. She was spiraling through a manic episode, battling a disorder that distorted her reality. Deep down, Nick knew that Sharon wasn't herself anymore. She had become a victim of her own mind, and punishing her felt like cruelty. In the chaotic swirl of emotions, Nick realized that Phyllis needed his protection more than anyone right now. She had been hurt, not just physically but emotionally, knowing that her attacker was someone who had once shared such close ties with Nick. She deserved his loyalty and his care. And despite the complicated history they had, Nick knew how much Phyllis loved him, how much she needed him in this moment of vulnerability. But could he just abandon Sharon to her fate? Nick found himself torn between the need to protect Phyllis and the duty he still felt toward Sharon. He couldn't simply hate her, not fully. She was the mother of his children, and that connection was undeniable. Mariah and Faith would never forgive him if he gave up on their mother, no matter how dangerous she had become. Sharon needed help. She wasn't just another criminal who needed to be locked away, she needed professional care, a place where she could be kept safe from herself and where others could be protected from her. Sitting in the cold hospital hallway, Nick knew what had to be done, though it felt like a hollow victory. Sharon would need to be placed in a mental health facility or, at the very least, closely monitored in some form of confinement. She could no longer live freely in society. The person she had become was too unpredictable, too dangerous to be left unchecked. But even as he made this decision, his heart ached for the woman she used to be. He couldn't abandon her entirely. He would make sure she got the help she needed, even if it meant keeping her away from him, from Phyllis, and from everyone she cared about. Phyllis, though, was his priority now. After years of ups and downs in their relationship, this incident had opened her eyes to the depth of Nick's feelings for her. In his urgency to protect her, Phyllis finally understood how much Nick truly cared. She saw the lengths he would go to ensure her safety, and it made her realize that maybe, just maybe, they could find lasting happiness together. After all they had been through, Nick's unwavering commitment was clear as day. And perhaps, after this ordeal, they could finally have the future they had always dreamed of. Nick looked at Phyllis lying in the hospital bed, her face still and peaceful despite the chaos that had brought her here. In that moment, he vowed to never let anything like this happen to her again. He would protect her, always, no matter the cost. But the storm inside him raged on, as he knew he would also carry the burden of Sharon's downfall, never fully able to let go of the woman she had once been. As the days passed, Nick took the necessary steps to ensure Sharon was placed in a facility where she could get the help she so desperately needed.